Hi.
Hello.
Good day, sir.
Good day.
Please tell the listeners your name.
My name is Sagewlf Hassett.
Sagewlf Hassett. Please describe our environment right now.
Well, we're in a lovely garden with flowers galore. You just smelled one of your all-time favorites.
Oh, the gardenia.
And we have hibiscus, bougainvillea, roses, lavender, sage, rosemary, jasmine.
It's spring. Spring has sprung.
I know, it's amazing.
Thank you, Los Angeles.
Hummingbirds and butterflies and sparrows.
And Kit Kat.
And Kit Kat, our 20-year-old cat who still looks like a kitten.
This is what she does. This is what she did last night.
Yeah.
She takes
She
her
just
place
wants to
and
be right next to you.
Yes, and also I feel like she's guarding, which is really gorgeous.
Yeah, probably the old Egyptian in her.
Yeah. So tell me the things that you're super passionate about.
Well, what am I passionate about? My highest passion is in coming to know myself, which has been a long-standing pursuit. But it's coming into fruition in the past few years, and that's becoming a passion. Whereas prior to that, it was a mission. It was very much I'm going to conquer this terrain that I don't really seem to know too much about, which is that inner world.
And that conceptual seeking, that kind of like out-of-body idea of source.
Yeah, because really up until when you're actually seeking the inner world, you're actually, ironically, totally embodied. You're completely trapped within. And seeking the higher self is a self that's way more spacious and way less reactive and confused by the world.
Yeah.
So it's really so the more you become aligned with that path, the more passionate you become about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that really is amongst everything. It used to be art, it used to be literature. I was a passionate literature guy. I just read everything. And then I was an artist for many years and editor and all of these things, and that was definitely a passion. But all that stuff has kind of fallen by the wayside. It's now a part of my life, and it's part of what I do and part of what I love. But the passion is the seeking, and it's just the going deeper and higher and broader. It's that. And
I'd say the culmination of all of who you were being before, which has always been you.
Yeah.
But
well, that was the driving force. That's always when you're doing art, you're painting or writing, you're doing the same thing. It's just it's a little bit more of a distraction. You don't have the proper aim, but it's the same search.
A type of meditation.
Yes, it's the same search. You're trying to figure things out, and but with meditation you have a very specific search, and your eye is on a certain target, so to speak, and you know where you're aiming for, and that aim ultimately, there is no target, but ultimately you're being pointed in the right direction. Whereas art can take you in every direction, and literature can take you in any direction. It's just so this brings a little more focus to it.
Mm-hmm. Give the listeners a little mini chronology for context of what your journey has been artistically, and then I want you to lead us into what you're doing currently.
Well, I think it all begins in the beginning. That you just
does it.
Yeah,
fascinating.
It's an interesting concept. But the beginning for me is just coming into this world and just being utterly confused and terrified of all things. Just coming to the world. Yeah, just this entity, this physical being on the planet, and all of these people with their agendas. And I grew up in LA in the 70s, where there was a lot of strange agendas just in the neighborhood. People wanting to molest and
harass
and kidnap and all of these fucking things that were going down in LA. And of course, that as a child, you just totally freaked out by that. And then I had these demonic ghosts in this house that I grew up in
Yeah.
that would just stand at the side of my bed every night and just. I probably brought them in with me from the prior life,
Yeah.
but they came in and they were just
My
like,
old familiar friends.
oh my God, they were just terrifying. So, and then of course my father was a bit aggressive, and my mom was quite needy at the time, and just because she wasn't getting the love she needed from her husband, and so it was all of these forces in play that set the mind kind of adrift.
Yeah.
And then, I think it's all of our jobs as human beings on this planet to try to realign that mind to the context of, that you're in, and your heart, where your heart is pointing you toward. And that's like a 20, 30-year process right there.
Yeah.
In the meantime, you're exploring, well, how do I get there? Through psychedelics, through art, through literature, through relationships. All of these things, again, are calibrating. And so there's massive failures, but there's great successes too. And so it's it all begins there.
Bouncing off of your environmental things that kind of sends you back to yourself for a minute.
Yes.
Like, oh, there's another glimpse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you recognize those small successes where you take a leap, and you go, oh wow, this is you do have the ability to succeed in this journey.
Yeah.
And you pursue that a little bit further, and that leads you into a new terrain. A new door opens, and a whole new wonderful thing. Some teacher enters your life,
Mm-hmm.
and just opens the door to like teachings that you just had no idea existed, and then boom, you're on a new path. But it's the same path. It's just deepening
Continuation of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that when the student is ready, the teacher arrives?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the student is essentially calling for the teacher.
Yes.
And the universe always provides when you're in need of.
Yes.
When you're clear on your needs.
Yes,
If
right.
the needs are muddied, of course, you're going to get all kinds of different teachers. The negative teachers. My early life was filled with negative teachers. The teachers who showed me which way not to go. And then those teachers are no longer into my life, and now the only teachers who come into my life, are these beautiful spirits, like you and Rachel, and overt teachers,
Yes.
like the Tibetan teachers, and
In the physical form to help guide and lift
Yes.
and drive forward together.
Yeah.
Yeah, Keiji just said something really amazing
Keiji's
to
amazing.
me. Mind-blowing. She's
awesome.
my newest teacher.
I
Actually,
would like
Sabrina
her to be
is
one of
as
my
well.
teachers as well.
Oh, she
and a
will.
friend, of course.
Yes. She's grounded in both, which is just
Mm-hmm.
even more spectacular. And she said, when we know what we're seeking, we bring that into our lives.
That's it.
And that arrives, and it can be the teacher.
Yes.
I believe that everyone that we interact with is a teacher,
Yeah.
for better or for worse.
Well, and how can they not be? They're physical manifestations of energy.
Yeah.
And then you come up against it. Of course they're going to influence you. I mean, energy is information right there. And so we need information to grow and change. And
Yeah.
so every single person, good or bad, is going to influence us. And if we know what we want, they're going to influence it in the right way.
Yeah.
No matter who they are.
Even if it's a seemingly quote-unquote negative reaction against, it's still a
because then you see
clarifying.
which way, again,
Yes.
you see which way you don't want to go.
Yes.
That's a good person who's struggling, or that's actually just a fucked up individual I want out of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. And maybe in a way, it's actually a kudo to ourselves that the clarifying of that we start to see and say, that's not for me, that's actually a huge
Yes.
positive win.
The fact that you can articulate that to yourself
Yes.
is major.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, quick skip forward, you were a history teacher in high
No,
school?
I was an English teacher.
English
literature,
teacher
yeah.
in high school, English lit.
And college.
And college.
Yeah.
And you had 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
And
Still do.
Still, yes,
Yeah.
have lovely
Amazing.
beings.
Beautiful, yep.
And you have now published a book. Well, your second book, but recently published a second book and are about to go on a book tour. Woo!
Woohoo! This is part of the mini tour right here.
Yes, beginning of mini tour podcast interviews.
Yeah.
And you've just started your own podcast.
Well, kind of. That was more of a...
To promote the book.
Artificial, yeah.
Yeah.
To promote the book, yes. But I guess it's all about promoting the book. This is not. This is.
I love that you're saying it's artificial, as if it's like this pretend invisible
Well, it's not
thing.
my natural course, you know.
Yeah.
Like I'm quite internal, and I'm not really about promoting anything. But obviously, I have to promote a book because I spent a whole year writing the book.
Yeah.
And I wrote the book because I needed cash. So like, these books can't sell.
But also, who writes a book? You could have just written it in your journal and called it a day. You're intending to share it with others.
That was the point. So, I did set myself on a course to promote.
Yes.
Ultimately. And so here we are. But again, I never saw what we're doing here as promotion. I love talking to you, and you have this
this
very
is a
cool
conversation.
podcast. Yeah.
But you are, and this is part of...
It just kind of happened.
Yeah.
Like the book got released at the time that, what you wanted. We set up this interview, so that's great. But...
well, you're passionate about sharing essentially your entire life's work and process and journey with the world in hopes to inspire them on their own journey, and that is a noble act.
Yeah. And the book is really me sitting in meditation, coming to an understanding of many, many years of practice, and realizing that there's value in that. That so many people that I know are asked these questions. Like what are you meditating on first, or why, or can you really get there? And the answer to all of it is, yes, you can get there, and it's actually quite simple and direct.
Yeah.
And so much of what I've read in terms of meditation texts have been distractions or deflections. They never quite land. They never quite, point you to the direct spot. So I wanted to be as clear as possible, and spent a lot of time. And as a writer, I had the gift of looking at my own language and seeing where it gets really confusing and muddled. My first book was an intentional, like, I'm going to bring you down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
In fact, I didn't even want a reader. So the first book was basically, me, the journal. It was me exploring my inner world without wanting any witnesses.
Yeah.
And this book is the exact opposite. I wanted to be as crystal clear as possible.
Uh-huh.
And welcome every single reader at every single level, because we can all get to this point. We can all put ourselves onto the path of, opening our hearts, opening our minds, becoming more spacious, less body bound, less troubled by the afflictions of the body. And so this past year has been about being as clear as possible with every single word, so that, by the time it's done, I have the best possible thing, at least at the level that I'm at now in my practice. This is the best I can give you.
Yeah, yeah.
5 years from now, I could probably write another better book.
Exactly.
But this is the book that I can deliver at this point.
Yeah, this is the presence. And I've read the book, and I got mine signed.
You read it, yeah.
Yeah. And what I love about it is, and it's what you're describing, that you've given both the very spiritual, ephemeral goal, the seeking of that higher sense of being, which is not a quote-unquote tangible thing, as well as the good old 1, 2, 3 instructions of preparing for, like, one of my favorite chapters, obviously, is about diet and cleansing of the physical body as the temple to prepare for that higher spiritual seeking and state, and not consuming pesticides, and that being really important. And so I just love that you wove all that together. It's very approachable, and it is very like, hey, my fellow human peoples, let's go on this journey together in these bodies that we've chosen to be in this world together right now.
Yeah,
that's
well,
rad.
I think that's the problem that I have with so many texts and so many people, when they talk about, they get into the whole mode of being spiritual, and it's it's out of the body. It's these abstract ideas, these concepts, and these notions that are, of course we all strive for, but we can't attain because there's no clear footwork to get you there. And the fact is, we are in this body, and we are being poisoned by the communities and the food systems and the toxic environments that we find ourselves in. This needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
In fact, it has to be addressed prior to going on any kind of higher level, out of body pursuit. You got to fucking take care of your body. Otherwise, the body's just clouded. It's heavy. It's depressed. And who wants to
try to get through that muck?
Through that, yeah. You just want to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Or just go out and party, because that's the part. Drinking and smoking and all that is the energy you need to get through the next couple hours.
Yeah.
So you got to cleanse the body. You got to and then you got to bring the consciousness back into the body. So these are all very practical. And then at that point, you can kind of like put your feelers outward.
Yep.
And try to go higher.
And we've done our fair share of partying together.
Big time.
And our fair share of cleansing.
And I love partying.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't partied in a long time, but the only reason I'm not partying is because I love to meditate.
Yes.
And like wake up at 1 a.m. and sit there for a couple hours. And if I'm partying, I can't do that.
Yes.
I just physically can't do that. But I think about it every day. I'd love to just like smoke a joint or have a cocktail or whatever.
Yeah.
But
it dulls the senses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just distracts me.
Same. That's what I found now that I'm waking up at 4:30 or so every morning, that my body desires, it's like a sacredness to me, like a gift that I'm giving myself when I choose to put myself to bed at a reasonable hour. And I'm getting sleepy at 8:30 or so because I know my body knows I'm getting up that early naturally. And if I don't go to bed until 1, I will still wake up at 4:30 and I will suffer for that. And I won't be as intentionally conscious in my higher seeking, which is always my ultimate, right? So it doesn't feel like a trade-off per se, because a lot of people get into, I think, that struggle of like, oh God, I don't create that energy around it. It's this beautiful choosing, like a gift to unwrap for myself every day.
That's it. Trade-off equates to something that's equal. Like, if
right.
I don't do this, then I get that much in return. In fact, you're getting so much more by not going into that whole party mode, because just your ability to move through the world on a daily basis without fear or anxiety or depression or any of the confusion that I used to be saddled with.
Yeah, me too.
Is like such a gift, and actually drinking and smoking contributes to that. It makes your mind a little bit tired, and you get thrown off balance, and then you get caught off guard by somebody who does something, and you think about it for days, and then in that thinking you're more distracted and something else throws you off, and it's just a snowball effect.
Yeah, and it's the immediate and also the long-term build-up of So let's talk about how did you discover meditation and a seeking of higher self?
Again, I think that came when I was really young. I just remember going out in my backyard, which is like this simple grass backyard, nothing in it, a fence and grass, and a bird line across, a wire across with birds on it. And I used to look at the birds and, just sit there and look at the earth, and like, something's missing. And I just remember feeling, but I had no teachers, and I had no context, for me to receive teachings, but something in me was just shouting, to find some sort of teaching. And I've stumbled on like Native American literature, and Black Elk Speaks, I think, was one of my first, really deep dives into the possibility that spirit, you can work with spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And then somehow I stumbled on Buddhism, but again, so much of Buddhism wasn't really my thing, because at a certain level, Buddhism is very, it's a rejection of, you got to stop doing things.
Dogmatic.
Yeah, you gotta behave in certain ways
that are right or wrong.
Right or wrong, and if there's one religion on this planet, it's Buddhism for me. But what I ultimately love about Buddhism is the natural progression is to pull you out of the religious aspect of it and move you into the philosophical and then beyond the philosophy and it gives you all the tools to do it so you can go inward and find your own personal wisdom, that wisdom mind. And then that's where Buddhism points you towards Dzogchen. Mm-hmm. And so Dzogchen, once I was also doing martial arts at the time with an amazing Japanese master, and it's kind of doing the same thing. It's a lot of body movement to circle in on ultimately this inner power that you have. Mm-hmm. And it's a very natural power. It's a very soft power. It's a fluid power.
Yeah.
I would even say it's a feminine power because you're kind of working with the world around you in a very beautiful way.
Yes.
So martial arts was kind of like enhanced this movement towards, it was a simultaneous movement towards Dzogchen. Back in the 90s, I was just stumbling on some books. Again, books were my lifeblood. I found my spirit practice through books, and then ultimately through books, through practice, and they led me to the teachers. So I think that was the question you were asking.
Yes.
The rabbit hole in my own mind.
Yes. Let's uncover the
Yes.
rabbit. So, what is the name of your book?
Entering the Mind.
Yes, and you just published it, not even a month ago?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
And where is it available to others?
Well, it's available on Amazon at the moment, and we're going to get out there and find the bookstores that we'll just reach out to them and see if they'd want to take on the books. And
yeah.
But right now it's Amazon, yeah.
And you've got a website?
The website is Entering the Mind, which takes you to my other website, which is Riot Material, which is a magazine. It's a literary, cultural magazine. Nothing to do with Buddhist practice. It's all about art.
Right. Yeah.
Art
and you spent quite a bit of time in your life doing that, cultivating that. Still do.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Great magazine, great writers, good art.
And then you also have Instagram for Entering the Mind.
Yes.
Yeah. All the places people can find out more and learn about your journey and
yes,
see.
Come join us at Entering the Mind. My wife Rachel and I are running that, and Rachel's part of the. Rachel's in the book as the woman who falls and breaks her hand, and
as the woman who falls and breaks her hand.
And there's a lesson to be learned there.
Enter the death and pain.
Enter your pain.
So, why do you choose to? Well, you live in 3 places, so let's talk about that and why you choose to live in those places.
So, LA is the home. I grew up in LA and then ultimately bought a house in LA, so here we are in East Hollywood today. Then Rachel and I bought our place up in northern Mojave a decade or so ago, and that's where I wrote the book. That's where we spent a lot of time during the pandemic. That place is sacred.
So sacred.
Just an incredible place. And yet it is totally off the grid. It's way out there. And so when you're there, you're alone, you're with the land, you're with nature, and there's nothing else really.
Yeah. 40 acres of high desert below the Sierra Nevadas.
Yes.
Just epic.
Yeah. So that's a great place, but if you want to be with people, you got to find kind of another spot. So we ultimately decided we wanted to get another place in Joshua Tree as well. And great community there. Beautiful desert as well. And I don't feel it's as spiritually enlivening as Olanchit is, but it's a creative center. It's a juicy place. You really can settle into all kinds of activities there. You guys just spent a whole girls' weekend retreat there that you found very powerful. So great spot. So between the 3 places, you kind of get everything you need.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you get to rotate.
Yeah.
Yeah. My friend last night was like, God, that sounds like homelessness to me. And I was like, actually, they choose this lifestyle. And how invigorating that you get to pick and choose your elements and create your vibe by seeking instead of be stuck in one place and just tolerate some things.
Yes. Well, but though your friend is not so far off because, we're, through the pandemic, we've had no money. So we've had to rent 2 of the 3 places. And so in some ways, as soon as you get settled in, a couple days later, you get a call and it's like, well, we gotta go to the other place because we're renting this place, and well, I'm not speaking badly about that. That's kept us alive, but you do feel displaced after a while. I'm ready to settle back down, which is exactly why I wrote the book, because selfishly, I want to have enough cash so we don't have to continue to go from one place and pack up the car. You got 2 dogs, small car. It's a lot of work, packing and unpacking, shopping, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So yes, on the one hand we're utterly blessed, and on the other hand I'd like to kind of like settle down a little bit more and put an end to the rental thing.
Yeah. Well, the way I see it is that you guys get to settle into the Mojave space and always have that as your foundational place, but then hop in to your little inspiration social spikes.
Yes, which we're needing more and more after 3 years of being locked down.
Yes.
And then being up in Atlanta writing the book, but also Rachel and I just kind of walking the land and doing our thing with the dogs. We're ready for that social spike again.
Yeah, cool. I know. I'm excited for all this summer talk.
Yes. Oh, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, so fun.
And here we are in this today. It's like a warm Los Angeles day. It's like you just feel it. You're ready to just get out and just enjoy the people again, everybody,
Even the tone of the shade of the sunshine is like a certain joyful yellowish white, right? It's a warmth. And even and I love this about it, but in the Mojave, on the Mojave land, it's a different shade. It's a little cooler of a yellow, and it's a little more kind of sparse feeling. Definitely drives me inward, as opposed to let's rip off the shirt and put the bikini on.
Well, I wonder if it has to do with all the flowers that we're getting, all the different reflections of light that are coming off all this greenery and the reds and the oranges. It's got to be.
I mean, we are enveloped literally in a bougainvillea. Well, multiple bougainvillea.
Yeah.
Just, juicy. So which personality traits of yours have helped and hindered you in your journey?
Well, I would say the same personality traits have both helped and hindered me simultaneously. And those being, I'm tenacious. So when I'm on the scent of something, you can't get me off it. So if it's about, if I want to know more about Dzogchen, man, I'll just read 1,000 books.
Deep dive.
And I'll go to, teachers until I find the one teacher who I just want to spend years with. And then that in itself will be a problem for some of the relationships that I'm in, because, what about me? And I recognize that in myself as a problem. Luckily, I've arrived at a place now where I'm not in hot pursuit anymore. Now I'm kind of inhabiting years and years of work that is now within me, and I can enjoy the world. But I was definitely hot on the path of knowledge, but I was also on the warrior path as well. Training like a fucking mad dog because again, I grew up in LA, and it was right during the times of the race riots. The blacks and the Mexicans and the whites were all in fierce battle with one another.
Yeah.
We were all friends too, which was really crazy. Most of the time we're all friendly and just hanging out and smoking cigarettes together and having fun. But then when the wars would break out, sides were quickly taken, and you'd fucking just beat down on each other, and then boom, the next day, you're smoking cigarettes again, and it's like, what the fuck just happened?
It's like Lord of the Flies prison mentality.
It was unbelievable. And then of course that would, you hear the words these days, when you find your common enemy, the enemy comes together and we fight against the common enemy.
Right.
Well, the common enemy for us back then was the LAPD too.
Yes.
So the LAPD was, they'd come, every single party, the LAPD would come in force with their billy clubs and just beat down on all of us. So we would find friendship and camaraderie around, protecting ourselves from them as well. So, but what that did to the individual, me in particular, was it stoked a lot of fear on the one hand, but also the need to protect yourself.
Yes.
And so very early on, Chuck Norris opened up his first dojo next to my house. So that
Cool.
was like right at the time that I needed to learn how to protect myself. So he was my first teacher, which is very kind of like very basic, you know, like punching a wood block with your with your hand, and
Yeah.
you know,
Using force, the
kicking.
power of that anger force to
Yeah.
direct it.
Yeah, and just learning how to just put your hands up in the right way so you don't get your nose broken, things
Yeah.
like that. And that I really loved. And my dad was a boxer. I have come from a family of boxers, so boxing was very much a part of the mindset of the family I grew up in.
Uh-huh.
And so that as well was also shaped the way I thought. But it also made me, it also isolated, because Rachel and I were just walking the dogs around the block the other day, and you know, I walk around now smiling at everybody and
Yeah.
saying hello to people and stopping to talk. Whereas, you know, 15 years ago, I'd walk through this neighborhood just as a soldier.
Yes.
You know, just move through, you know, shaved head.
Yeah. Wife beater.
Yeah.
Fucking tattoos.
Anybody who fucks with me, I'm ready.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but that was an old mindset.
Yes.
That was me growing up, and it all the way into my 40s. That boy was still present in me.
Yes.
And now he's gone. You know, now it's like the last thing I could even think about is touching another person, you know,
Right.
in a hostile way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, when you know that you've developed those survival skills for a reason, and then they no longer become necessary for you to keep utilizing.
Yes.
You need to exhibit some of your new strengths.
Yeah. And they interestingly channel themselves into much needed facets of your, like, for instance, all the physical training and, you know, becoming very good at, you know, defending myself on a martial level.
Mm-hmm.
Those move into more subtler and subtler terrains within, and
Yeah.
you begin to use those same energies of mind to tackle problems in your meditation.
Yes.
You know, like the thoughts that are just racing through your head and you're struggling to quiet them down. You can really apply a martial technique at some point.
Yes.
It's like, all right, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And then
And the fluid move.
yeah,
of like
you do a little
ha-ha.
fluid movement, and I watch myself even today. You know, like now it's like when the wave of thinking comes up, you can just watch yourself tumble like a body surfer
Yes.
into the deeper mind, you know, and not get caught up in the wave of the thought.
Surrendering.
So you're actually applying techniques, you know, that you've learned at a young age.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the transformation from the physical into the spiritual,
Yeah.
ephemeral.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's all energy.
It's all energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and strategy.
So how have self-reliance and community support aided you?
Self-reliance major, and I would say, you know, my response to that maybe up until about 10 years ago would have been, yeah, I've always been self-reliant, and you know, I pulled myself up
Yeah.
by the, what is
I
that
got
old saying,
this.
the bootstraps,
Yeah.
you know, did it myself. But in reality, it's like, no fucking way. It's like,
That's just proving something to yourself when you're lacking confidence.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now I recognize, you know, the community is it's all interdependent. It's all, I've needed so many people, you know, that have really lifted me along the way that I didn't really recognize at the time.
Yeah.
But I very much recognize now how interdependent things are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how communal bound we are.
Yes. Yeah, there literally is no us without the all.
No, at all.
Beautiful. And how has this pursuit affected or changed other areas of your life?
Well, speaking specifically to Dzogchen, which is a major part of how I think, it's completely eradicated anxiety from my life. I mean, I was kind of fraught with like chronic levels of anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
where I would have to just drink to go to a party, or, you know, smoke joints or do mushrooms or all kinds of, you know, anything to take me out of this low-level mindset that I had, or this body experience that I had, to lift me into a place where I can socialize.
Yes.
Because I was racked with anxiety. So, like, I just watched as I practiced and deepened in my practice how all those things just began to, on their own, just kind of naturally fall away. Mm-hmm. So that was magnificent and utterly rewarding.
Yeah.
For me, I think that was my biggest hurdle in life, was overcoming my own internal...
Get out of your own way.
Get out of my own way.
Yeah.
So Dzogchen was it, but also, again, just good people in my life.
Yeah.
Being kind to me and loving me and trusting me, gave me the power to rise within myself.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And when it's like non-promotional for themselves, that true unconditional love that another person gives, to just create a step up into who that person's greatest self is.
Yes.
That's my dream of the world, is that we all do that for each other.
Yeah, because when somebody loves you on that level, that's kind of unconditional, they're essentially sanctioning your higher self. They're saying yes to this higher being that you yourself haven't even acknowledged or having a hard time saying yes to.
Yeah.
And they come in and just like, get the fuck out of the way, man. I want that dude.
Yes.
And
I see you, sucker.
And so it's like, okay, who is that guy?
Yeah.
Let me spend some time with that person too, and then the person who is saying yes to that person, they're drawing it out of you, so you get to face it more and more and more, and you become more familiar with it and more at ease with it, and suddenly there you are, you're with yourself.
Isn't that beautiful, the concept of others introducing us to our greatest self?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I know. And when those people come, man, they're gifts.
It's total
gifts from the gods.
Yes.
And let's keep walking and just let him know that everything's okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing to worry about.
Totally.
And there really isn't anything to worry about. From this perspective now, many years down the line, there's utterly nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Of course, we can get into the, is the world going to collapse in on itself? Is the war in the Ukraine, is that the last step for us? Is our environmental damage, is it too late? Are we poisoning ourselves? These are very existential concerns. But from my personal perspective, I'm not worried about death. I'm not worried about somebody coming and breaking into my house and putting a gun to my face. None of that stuff scares me.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's beautiful. I love being alive, and I love being on this planet, and that would be the thing to offer. Is like, yes, there's nothing to be afraid of. So now we can fight for the higher battles.
Yeah. Of
saving the planet and saving each other from ourselves.
Yes,
basically.
Each other, starting with ourselves and then expanding that to all of us.
Yeah.
Creating the resonance we want together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And if you had a whole other lifetime after this one, would it change the way you're doing this now?
No. This life that I'm living now is preparing me for the next life. And, everything that I do in this life every single day is with the mind toward my eternal self. That would, if I was to do anything inappropriate, that eternal self is looking at that act and saying, oh, you fucked up, buddy. That was a mistake. You better correct that immediately.
Yeah.
So, it's everything
it's about
I do
discovering and seeing ourselves and those things so that we can make the correction more quickly.
Yeah, because ultimately I do want to enlighten. I do want to get to the place where, I could be of service to all sentient beings. Right now I'm very much in service to myself and to the people that I care about, and writing this book is my first foray into, learning how to become a teacher on that level, but not wanting to be that teacher. I'm still very much learning, but ultimately I do want to become the being who just knows that, the duality of all things, and to truly inhabit that and be of service to all. And I won't get there by getting trapped in the day-to-day details.
Yes.
I have to keep my mind and eye high.
Yeah.
And I can't fuck up in the sense of really mistreating anybody or being rude to people or or rejecting people because of my insecurities, like I have to be aware of my insecurities, but also not be sure that I don't denigrate anything.
Yeah.
So, because ultimately doing that, I take steps in the wrong direction. So
meditating is like a continual cleansing of self so that you can be putting the resonance you seek out into the world from that space.
Yes, and it's calibrating, it's recalibrating, so that, and it's maintaining awareness so that I could just see in the flutter of somebody's eye that I've said something wrong, and to immediately and seamlessly correct that without perhaps them even knowing that I'm making the correction, because I've just witnessed my word stung, so then, the next word is going to definitely be something that's going to bring you back.
Right. So in the sense of wrong, you're not saying we're right and wrong, but in the sense of wrong, you're saying that you want to create a certain receptivity and openness and a space for someone to enter into and be included in. And therefore, if you are doing something that for that specific person is creating a contrast or an awkwardness that they don't feel safe in that space, you're going to course correct to create that.
Absolutely.
With them possibly not even knowing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to martial arts training, because that's all about, if somebody throws a punch at you, all you do is turn your shoulder a little bit and you just lift your hand and it deflects.
Yeah.
You develop an eye, but also if you're a sensitive person, your heart's open, you recognize that the word, you feel the word come out of your mouth. You feel an action that wasn't quite right even within your own,
Yeah, you got a sense.
And then you see the reaction of the other person. You just see a little twinge of something and you go, oh, that stung.
Yeah.
And you fix it right away. It's an immediate fix.
And that's where we see our reflection in everyone around us.
Yes.
And those are all our teachers.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I always love talking to you. Listeners, we talked for about an hour and a half, as we do every morning before this interview even started.
Juicy,
our
intense,
morning, yes.
Coffee, so it gets ramped up to
And what is your current favorite saying, or one that you use often in your life?
I don't know.
Or mantra.
Well, I don't have one, actually.
Or whatever comes to mind.
Favorite saying?
Yeah. Or something you use.
You've stumped me. I don't know. Do you notice anything that I say often?
No.
I find that I don't tend to. I find if I'm saying something on a repeated level, it's a habit.
Yes.
And then I don't.
And it becomes unintentional. And therefore.
Then I'm like, oh God, why did I just say that again? So
Yeah, which is kind of actually interesting, because don't we all have those typically that we can identify in each other? But yeah, I'm like sitting here trying to think of what.
For instance, I sometimes will say words, like the word amazing, like that. I'll go through periods where not only am I using it, but then Rachel's using it, and then it becomes infectious. Everybody that we're talking to, so you're suddenly using the word amazing. And then
with one or two exclamation points.
Yeah, and then recently the word beautiful is now peppering some phrases. But
I mean, those aren't shitty words to
They're
use.
not shitty words, but then they become placeholders
Yes.
after a while, and you go, oh, geez,
too generic
good.
of an expression.
So then, yeah. But honestly, I don't know what mantra phrases. I don't really tend to have any.
Okay. You want to sing us a song instead?
No way.
Also, listeners, as per my usual for my interviewees, I let Chris choose the space, but were it my choice, Chris is a fucking amazing DJ, and he just blows my mind constantly, and he's always playing music, so it creates this beautiful ambiance that's not overtaking. It's just kind of this beautiful, there it is, beautiful.
There you go.
Compliment
right.
to create a certain environment that is very welcoming and joyful, and you find yourself kind of your hip starts shaking, and you look down, and you're like, oh, look what's happening there.
Yeah.
You can't not.
You find a leg that you start grinding up against.
And then it just goes
Tops
from there.
are off.
Yeah. Oh, that's the hope.
That's the hope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's your energetic DJ intention.
Right. Exactly.
Well, so do you have any questions for me, or anything that you'd like to add to this?
Well, I love it that you're doing these interviews, because you're so good at it.
Thank you.
Not only do you have the questions are great, but you really know how to have the conversation that pulls those questions up to the next level, and I think you're going to be a star at this. I'm looking forward to 2 years from now that you're a national,
treasure.
You're a national treasure, an American treasure that we can
global.
all. Yes.
I'm aiming for globe. Maybe even multi-universal, actually. I'm going big.
I think you're on your way, because you have
I
everything.
feel it.
And you have the energy, and you got the smile, and you put everybody at ease. I mean, interviews, it's not my natural thing. I get a little bit kind of nervous.
Yeah.
Prior to, and I think about, I got to get my head straight for this.
You're like, what are the questions I need to prepare? I'm like, no, you may not.
Well, actually, I actually don't like preparing, because preparing actually makes me worse.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I'm better on the spot. But
you're great on the spot.
But you're excellent too, because you put me right at ease, and I'm sure you put everybody at ease, and you really make it a joyful experience. So it's great.
Yeah. And we've got our helicopter.
Hello, helicopter.
Hello, Ellie.
I used to meditate to that. Sit in my little box here in LA, watch the helicopter come through the space of my awareness, and watch my awareness look at the helicopter. And they became because they would be coming every 10 minutes. And sometimes, of course,
hover over
traffic,
the house.
they'd just hover, or the neighbor, just shot a weapon off, and so police are hanging over. So, sit there and use the helicopter as part of my meditation practice, as a mantra almost.
Yes, and like a grounding back to reality while you're floating. Just a little touch of here's where my body is, even if I'm.
And where in my awareness, or how is my hearing receiving this helicopter? Is it my hearing, or is it my awareness? And so it really became an effective tool.
Oh yeah, and you talk about that in the book.
Well, I used the wind. The wind. I do bring in the helicopter,
yes.
But the wind was, for me, I love the natural world. So the wind was great, a great way. But I learned that technique through the helicopters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, if that's not a roundabout, gorgeous way to end this.
There you go.
I mean, begin this forever.
And end it. And begin it again.
Let's draw circles.
Well, thank you for this interview. Beautiful.
Yes, thank you so much for participating.
Yes.
I love you.
I love you too.
Here's to more.